Hello everyone. In this video, we will work with factoring trinomials. The trinomials that we are dealing with relates to a quadratic equation. Why do I say quadratic equations? It's because this trinomial takes on a quadratic form. A quadratic is when you are having three terms and the higher exponent of x will be a square, and then after you have the x to the exponent 1, and right here basically you are having x to the exponent zeros right here. So let me write it in for everyone to see. So right here particularly it should be x to the exponent 0. And in the previous class or previous courses, we know that anything raised to exponent 0 is equal to 1. So in this case, you are having 1 multiplied by c, therefore you just write it as c. Okay, so quadratic is when you are having an exponent, a square, then you have an exponent 1, then you have exponent 0. So this one a full quadratic in this case. So if you have an equal to 0 and you have to solve for x, it turns into a quadratic equation. The reason I mention this because in the next video, we are working with solving for quadratic equation. But in this particular case, we are working with the quadratic expression in terms of trinomials, and we need to factor them. All right, so keep that in mind. So there are two cases when we factor this trinomial. The first case when a is equal to 1. So that means you see in this example here, you just have 1 times x squared plus 13x plus 42. So you are having a trinomial with a full quadratic form. So whenever you have a trinomial with a full quadratic form and the coefficient of a equal to 1, then what you need to do is, in order to factor this, you will have to find two numbers, multiply will give you c, and the same two number adding will give you the term for b. So in this case, I define it as n and m, where m and n are integers. So in this case, if you take n plus m, it will be equal to your middle term, the coefficient of your middle term. And if you take n times m, it will be equal to your last coefficient of c. Alright, so the main point here is when you factor trinomials with a quadratic form, you end up with a two binomial that is multiplied with each other, or the products of two binomials. Okay, so a trinomials in a quadratic form, when you factor that, you end up with the product of two binomials. So all of this concept will apply later when we have to solve for quadratic equations. And in this particular lesson, we are dealing with factoring the trinomials. So we are going to have an equal sign and we just need to factor this. Okay, so don't mistaken with letter equal to 0, or you can do that too. You can assume this equal to 0 and then you can solve for this quadratic equation and you have two solutions. And how do you put those two solutions into this product? Then later on we will learn about the application of the quadratics. All right, so at this point it's pretty simple because a is equal to 1 and with 13 and 42. Okay, so I strongly believe that every single one of us has the mathematical cell inside our body, because we need to learn mathematics from the very young age. And it's not difficult at all. Just think about it. Okay, think about for a second, pause for a second and think that your brain is actually work very quick in terms of numbers. And to me, I believe that everyone has the mathematical cell inside their body. They can do math really well. The main point here is you just need to activate that cell. So if I ask you, give me two numbers that add up to be 13. Honestly, you can do it very quick in your head. Okay? You can do it very quick in your head. But the unique part of it is our brain can think at the same time that the two numbers multiply give me 42 and that same number adding will give me 13. Okay, so by the time that I talk in the lengthy view about mathematics, about mathematical cells that make up our body, and also everyone has some mathematical components inside our thinking and our brains. We just have to activate it. You probably already solved these questions. Okay, so just pause for a moment and just think that you can think of number very quick, you can add very quick, and you can multiply very quick. So in this case, I believe that the only unique set of this number would be 7 and 6, right? 7 plus 6 will give me 13. Only 7 times 6 would give me 42. Okay, so what I'm going to ask everyone here is this. Okay, so if you cannot think of the number very quickly, there's a trick for that as well. 42 is an even number. So what you do is you divide 42 by 2. Okay, then you end up with 21 and 2, right? Divided by 2. So you have 21 times 2 will give you 42. But then it's 21 and 2 relates to the 13. And eventually you divide it by 3, you divide it by 6. You see there, you right? So if you take 42 divided by a number that you can quickly think of, and then from beside that you can just easily recognize the other number. But however, what I have been telling everyone is you don't have to go through that length. We may have to apply that concept to our next question or our next cases where we are having a is not equal to 1. Okay, but can be very quick thinking that I should have 7 plus 6 will equal to 13, and 7 times 6 will give me 42. So therefore, the factoring for this one should be x plus 7 multiplied by x plus 6. Okay, so these are the binomials. The product of two binomials will give you these trinomials. So you can always go back and check to see if you get them correct by multiplying them back in, right? So we can always check by expanding the term. So expanding the term, I really want to review this for everyone as well, that you are going to take this multiply by that, take each term from the front binomials, multiply with each term to the next binomials. So I will have x squared plus 6x plus 7x plus 42. So it's equal to x squared, combine the middle term. I should have 13x plus 42. So I get back to my original expression. Okay, so that means I got the factors correct. All right. So let's move on to the next one. And the next one, I throw in some negative numbers here. Okay, so again, you probably already figured this out, not in a split second already, before I even explain to everyone how to do this. All right, so, but keep in mind, all right, your n and m multiply with each other, the two integers. If you have a negative here, okay, so that means one of your number has to be negative, the other has to be a positive. So just keep that in mind. Take a look at the sign as well to consider what number that you should clear from the set of all the number in your head. Okay, so negative 27, so there must be a negative number and a positive number. They multiply to give you a negative values, and then the sign for this has to be a negative as well. So it's probably at this point it's just automatic. Everyone probably recognize right away that the two number should be negative 9 and 3. So this would give me negative 6, and this multiply with positive 3 should give me negative 27. So therefore, the factors will be x minus 9 and x plus 3. Okay, or you can write x plus 3 multiplied x minus 9 is the same thing. So it's a good idea to check. Okay, so we always check. So I quickly expand this for you to see that we are having the correct result. So x squared plus 3x minus 9x minus 27. Okay, I said minus, but I wrote down positive. So it's the sign of OH. Alright, okay. So x squared, this combine negative 6x and negative 27. I get back to my original statement, so I got it right. So sometimes it's a good idea to double check. The reason I'm doing this because in the next while, like in the next example right away actually, we need to take a look at the middle term here. Okay, the two middle terms that we are dealing with. So in this case, it's simple. It's because the coefficient A is equal to 1. So let me make a note here for everyone. I would say it's in quadratics. Alright. Now we are going to move on to the next example where A is not equal to 1. Alright. So I left this blank. So I'm going to write it in for everyone. So it's the same thing. The factors of these trinomials will be the product of two binomials. Alright, so the factors of this trinomial will be the product of two binomials. So the same thing that you have to find n and m. Okay, so what is n and m in this case? So n times m now will be equal to a multiplied by c. Alright. So it's not just equal to C, but it will be A multiplied by C. And the same N plus M will give you the middle coefficient, the B, in front of X. Alright, okay. So the first thing you want to do is you want to take 3 times 12 first. So I will have 36. Okay. And then the 36 and the 13, these are the two numbers that provide the clue for you to get the m and n. Okay, so you see the number is getting even bigger because you have to take the a multiply the c. So you have 36 and 13. Okay, don't forget 13 is a prime, right? It's a prime. And 36, like I showed everyone earlier. Okay, so you may want to get the factors of 36 out. So you may want to figure out the factor of 36. If you cannot think of those two numbers right away in your head, you may want to think about breaking the 36 into its factor. Okay, so the trick here is think of factors of 36. Okay, so what does I mean a factor of 36? Factor of 36, that means 36 can be, take 36 is an even number, you divide it by 4. What do you get? You got 9. Okay, and take a look at 9 and 4. Are they some sort of related to each other? They add up to be 13. So that's why I mentioned 13 is a prime. So you cannot divide it by 13 is a prime, so its factor is 13 and 1. Okay, so that means this number doesn't divide evenly by any number, only by itself or by 1. So 36 is an even number and it's not a prime. So 36 you can play around with it by finding its factor. So let's say you can only think of 36 is an even number, you divide it by 2, so you got 18. Okay, so is 18 somehow related to your number 13? No. But now you continue on, you take 36, you divide it by 4, you got 9. And 9 and 4 are related to each other. So 4 plus 9 will give you 13. Okay, so if you have no clue where to go with all of this number, okay, then the trick is to think of the factors in this number to see whether or not we can find the number that we want. So now, up to this point, the most important step is like this. I know there are several ways of factoring this type of trinomials, but I will stick to this method. Okay, I will stick to just one method, There's quite a few methods out there, but I just stick to this one method. So after you found your m and your n, what you need to do is you need to rewrite the very first term, but the middle term, okay, the plus 13x, I would like you to break that into 2. Okay, so break the 13 into the combination of its sum, like 4 and 9. So I will write plus 9x plus 4x, and then keep the last term the same. So you break this into 2, you see? Okay, so this add up to be positive 13x. Okay, so this is very important. Okay, after you found those two numbers, you break this term into 2. 9x plus 4x is 13x. Okay, this is very logical here. So the next step is you need to group them. Okay, so I group this and group this. So after you group this, you are going to factor out the common factor of these two. Okay, the same thing here. Factor out the common factor of these two. So the common factor of this one, 3x squared plus 9x, will be 3x. So I will have 3x, and inside the brackets, what do I get? I got x plus 3 left, right? Okay, so I have x plus 3. Now, plus, see that the plus sign? Because I will have the plus here. So what is the common factor between 4x and 12? Is 4. So I take out the 4, and inside the bracket, what do I get left? I got x plus 3. So now you see this and this again become the common factors of these two terms. Okay, so this term here, you having a term multiplied with a binomial, adding the 4 multiplied with this binomial, and your binomial is the same. Therefore, you are factoring out this binomial x plus 3, and what do you have remain is 3x plus 4. Okay, and that is your final factors. You cannot factor this any further. Okay, so I want everyone to take a note here. Recall in previous video, I showed everyone the basic concept behind the factoring. Okay, so I will demonstrate it here. Okay, so right here I have 3x and x plus 3, and here I have x plus 3. So I really want everyone to understand this correctly, so that later on when you have to factor complicated problem like this, when you have to think of the common factor, doesn't mean it's just a term or a number, or it's just a something with the power of x. It can be a binomial as well. Okay, so what I mentioned earlier is when you factor this, it means that you are going to divide the common factor into each of your term. So your common factor is x plus 3. So therefore, you are having this as your first term. It means you must divide this into your term. Okay? So the concept of mathematics is like this. So your original expression is equal to this. But then you change it by multiply x plus 3 to this entire expression. So it means that in order to balance it out and to get back to its original expression, when you multiply, you must divide, right? So you divide each of this into this. So obviously, you see that cancel out, that cancel out. So therefore, you end up with x plus 3, and then your term inside the bracket become 3x plus 4. Okay, so because we have done factoring for so many times, we recognize right away, like I said, our brains work pretty fast in terms of wrapping all the number together and to multiply and also to divide. So, but the meaning behind factoring is actually like this. Okay, so it's a good idea to check to see if we get the correct answer. Okay, so I'm going to check by multiply this back in. Okay, so don't forget expanding on the term. So I should have 3x squared plus 4x plus 9x plus 12. So combine the two middle terms, I should have 13x plus 12. Okay, so completed, very detailed on how you should approach this type of problem. Checking as well the meaning behind the factoring, the common factoring in terms of the binomial. Okay, so in terms of the binomial, we have to understand that this is our common factor. Alright, okay, so let's continue with the next question. And in the next question, what I have done here is I am giving you 4x squared minus 27x plus 18. Okay, so the very first thing you want to do is you are going to take 4 times 18. Alright, okay, 4 times 18. So it's equal to 72. And then we are going to compare that with the negative 27 and 72 and negative 7. So these are the set of the two numbers that you need to find. The two numbers multiply two numbers should give you 72, and the same two number adding will give you negative 27. So I here want to show everyone the trick or something to watch out for. Okay, you have product of two numbers, you end up with a positive number. So that means you should have two negative numbers, right? Two negative numbers. Because the two negative numbers, the multiply will give you 72. And that same two negative number adding will give you negative 7, which makes sense. You add a negative number with a negative number, your result will be a negative number. You probably can think of a number already, right? I'm explaining this, right? Okay, so now, like I said earlier, take 72. It is a even number. So let's say you divide it by 2. Okay, so take 72 divided by 2. I do this do it in your head. Okay, so 72 divided by 2, what do you get? 36. 36 and 2, are they anywhere near your negative 27? No. So continue dividing. So take 72. Now why don't you divide it by 3? Okay, to see, because 72, let's say if you divide it by 3, you got 24. Wow, so see 24 and 3. See that right away you could get the two numbers that you want. 24 and 3 somehow relate to each other in a way that you add these two numbers, you are getting 27. So you have negative 3 and negative 24 adding will give you negative 27. Okay, so the trick is to try to think of the factors of your number. So if the factors of your number, then to get the factor, the first thing is divided by 2, divided by 3, then divided by 4, and eventually you will get there. Okay, so I also take 72, I divided by 2. Okay, I would say I divided by 3, I get the 24. Okay, so then this leading to negative 3 and negative 24, right? Okay, so a big smiley face. We figure it out from the trick that we derive for ourselves. Now, so the next step is I'm going to write down that negative 24 times negative 3 and negative 24 plus negative 3. Okay, so exact two numbers that we want. So that means, so I'm going to write this on the side. Okay, so what we are going to do next is we are going to rewrite our expression for x squared minus 27x plus 18 equal to 4x squared. We do minus, okay, 24x minus 3x plus 18. You probably asked me this question. Is there a problem if I write negative 3x then negative 24 plus 18? It doesn't matter. The beauty of this method is doesn't matter where you actually write either negative 3x first or negative 24x first. Okay, so I will go over this with everyone as well. Okay, so if I have enough time, I definitely will go over this. I think I limit my videos to 30 minutes. So perhaps I finish this one and then I will continue with the next video for our last example and we will talk about special product as well. Okay, so sorry for the um, head planning here, for planning ahead of our lesson. So now I group this two. Okay, group these two. Then you are finding the common factor between these two and the common factor between these two. So the common factor for this should be 4x. Inside this you should have x minus 6 left. And you factor out the negative 3. Inside here you have x negative 6. Okay, so don't forget that you have to pull out the negative 3 so that when you multiply it back in, negative 3 times x will give you negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 6 will give you positive 18. So now you recognize that these are your um, common factor. And inside the brackets, you have 4x minus 3. So this is our final factors.